And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in New Mexico.
John, a record was set in Oakland over the last few weeks. Since June, there was a over 25-day stretch where nobody got murdered in the city of Oakland.
Well, there you go.
Then someone got murdered on July 4th.
Oh, well, I guess all good things have to come to an end.
I said, hell no, baby boy. Let me get up on out of here.
800-222-5222 is telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Well, when all the small businesses around MacArthur Park were complaining that the drugs and the homeless and the crime were preventing their customers from being able to become patrons at their shops, the mayor said, well, we'll have a listening session and I'll hear you out. Then she promptly did nothing except make sure that there was more Narcan in the park. But if the family business is the El Chapo family business, then she'll stand up for you. And that's exactly what she did yesterday when the feds came in to clean out that park. And she said she wanted the feds to go home and to leave her people alone. Well, in that park, you're not talking about people who are playing softball or sliding down slides or having water balloon fights. In that park, you're talking about the drug trade, you're talking about identity theft, you're talking about murders, you're talking about all kinds of serious crimes. And Randy, she's digging in her heels on her position that the feds should have stayed away, and she did so on Fox 11 with Elex Michaelson.
Here is that interview that aired last night on Fox 11.
Massive raid at MacArthur Park by federal agents. It led to L.A. Mayor Karen Bass showing up and asking for them to leave. Not long after she did that, they did.
They were already leaving.
But she wants to take credit for it.
I spoke with the mayor at LA City Hall late this afternoon.
Mayor Bass, when you first started to see the images of what was happening in MacArthur Park, what went through your mind?
Well, I was horrified. I mean,
No, you know what went through her mind? I'll tell you exactly what went through her mind. This is the perfect excuse to not go to the press conference about the fires where I'm going to have to answer a question again about why I was in Ghana.
You know, when the Lakers used to go on the road and there would be a flight delay, the antsiest person on the plane was always Chick Hearn, legendary Laker broadcaster. And after the pilot would come on the intercom and say, okay, we need to wait to have some refueling done. And then, oh, no, we have to wait a little bit longer. We're not right now. We lost our place in line to take off. After a couple of different delays, he was always known for screaming, "Let's go!" What he should have done was take credit for the plane actually taking off because he yelled at the cockpit.
I mean, what went through my mind was those occasions when I would travel overseas and see a city or a country under siege by their military in preparation for a coup.
We're not turning down the temperature at all, are we?
Oh, no. How about this? How about looking like a third world country because no one enforces the law, which is exactly what you're doing in that park.
That's the imagery that I had in my mind.
And you went there.
And I went
Walk
there.
us through what happened there.
Well, sure, I went there because I wanted to know who was in charge so that I could find...
Wait a second. Karen wanted to speak to the manager?
Oh, yeah, there's a new one. And she was wearing a pantsuit, too.
So that I could find out what was the mission and how to get them to leave, because chaos was beginning. And of course, you know, when something that egregious as having it look like there are troops on the ground, you know, that could create a crowd and then we could have a lot of problems.
Wait, you know, I thought you said all the people that did the riots were the outside agitators. Now she's saying it's the people in the community that would have gotten outrageous.
If she's going to continue to show up and demand to speak to the manager, then she needs to get rid of that buzz cut, and she needs one of them John and Kate +8 haircuts.
So instead of solving problems, they're creating problems, and I think that's really egregious.
The Border Patrol chief that you talked to on the phone told Fox later, basically, we're not leaving.
The federal government is not leaving L.A. I don't work for Karen Bass. The federal government doesn't work for Karen Bass. We're going to be here till that mission's accomplished, as I said, and better get used to us now, because this is going to be normal very soon.
And Mayor Bass basically doesn't have any control over what we do.
But just think about that. You know, what happened today, you had a group of kids who were in summer camp.
Who is sending their kids to summer camp at MacArthur Park?
You would be better off sending your kids to go play in traffic on the 110 freeway, which they also did.
That then had to leave the playing field because the troops were coming through.
By the way, this is Karen Bass trying to get the attention of national press that all they hear in the name is park. So she wants to paint the picture that it's kids playing. And that's when you saw the military vehicles and the horses. John, what are the regular things that are seen in MacArthur Park every single day?
Well, we have to take some bodies out of the pond. That's a frequent occurrence. We know that there are lots of drug overdoses because Narcan is now being provided by the government to the residents. And that's right, I said residents of that park. We know that there are needles all over the place because, you know, that's associated with the drug use. We know that you can go there to buy all kinds of fake documents. In fact, someone emailed us last night. Al Rantel, who was a longtime talk show host on KABC, sent one of his producers, not me, because I did work as one of his producers at one point in time, to MacArthur Park to try to buy fake documents. And that guy was in and out of there faster than how long it takes you to go through TSA. You can get anything you want in that park. And it's not like they're just coming up with a number that hasn't been used. Oh, no, you're stealing someone's identity from Iowa. It's not a victimless crime. And then when the person from Iowa goes to get a home loan, they're told they're a dirtbag and wanted in Guatemala.
That then had to leave the playing field because the troops were coming through, and now they have to stay inside. They missed their activities for the day because they wanted to shelter them from the shock of ICE. And so the problem is that they say that it's going to continue. We need to get used to it. Continue what? Continue what?
The problem that Karen Bass has is her unwillingness to admit that there's a problem at that park.
Oh, yeah. Well, whenever you tell a Karen they're not the boss, they always don't take that well either.
The reign of fear and terror on our city toward no end. I don't even know if anybody was.
How about the reign of fear and terror that's in that park every day because it's controlled by the gangs who go up to all the local shops as a protection racket? How about the fact that a lot of the shops in there are selling stolen goods?
Well, if she's going to continue with this lie that if you go inside that park, it's Dick Van Dyke dancing around with Julie Andrews, here's what I would offer, Madam Mayor. If that's what you think is going on inside that park, I will personally make you a picnic basket where I'll fill it with all the white wine that I know you Karens like. I'll fill it with the finest cheeses. We'll get some crackers. And I'm not talking about Trader Joe's either. I'm going to Beverly Hills. We'll find you some smoked salmon. We'll find you some caviar. I'll put some chocolates in there. I'll go down to a French restaurant and get you some fresh baked bread. Whatever it is that you want. I'll fill up the picnic basket. I'll make sure to put in a soccer ball there so you can go out and you can live your best Pele life. We'll put in some umbrellas so you can stick around so it won't be an eat and run sort of thing. You can hang out there all day. We'll bring you a slip and slide. So make sure that you bring your bathing suit with you so you can go ahead and you can just have fun on that slip and slide all day. Now, there's a catch, though. Because this park is safe and that's where children are and that's where families go to celebrate birthdays and there is no danger in that park at all, I want you to leave your security detail at home and I don't want you to bring one of your cell phones. You just need to go in there with your 3 closest friends and you can enjoy a picnic that I will personally prepare for you and you'll have a grand old time. And then I want you to come back with a report for me and tell me how it went, provided you make it.
The reign of fear and terror on our city toward no end. I don't even know if anybody was detained. I'm not even sure they.
Well, apparently somebody leaked that operation was going to happen. Who did that?
Yeah, gee, I wonder.
I don't even know if anybody was detained. I'm not even sure they had a clear purpose to be there other than a show of force.
Well, they've said that MacArthur Park is run by MS-13, that there are gangs, that there's all sorts of problems, drug use there.
And you know what? We have a police department.
Okay, that's actually interesting. I thought she was going to flat out deny that. So the gangs very peacefully share the park with the kids who are there for summer camp.
We have a police department that is clearly...
You think they're doing a good job there, though?
I absolutely think they are, and we've been working to...
Can I get an assist there, Shangy?
Shang?
She hasn't been doing much lately. I got to give her something to do on the show every once in a while. Otherwise, people will forget who Shang is, and that would make me very sad. So, Shangy, if you could just help me out real quick, we can get back to the program.
We have a police department that is clearly...
You think they're doing a good job there, though?
I absolutely think they are, and we've been working to...
Thanks, Shang.
She's always there for the assist.
We've been working together along with the council person. These problems can't be solved overnight.
Oh, so there are problems.
Well, what do you know? See, this is a little bit of truth coming out unexpectedly. Basically, her worldview is that park belongs to the gangs, that park belongs to the cartels, it belongs to the homeless. They have their own little world inside that outdoor prison, and I don't want to go disrupting it because that's like shaking a hornet's nest, because then all the drug addicts and the gang members and the losers will exit the park and into the city, and we don't want that to happen. So just keep them there living in harmony.
The park is in much better situation than it was. We've had a dramatic...
Says who?
Yeah, not the people who live around there.
There was a 5-person gang shooting in February.
Well, when Langer said they were going to close their doors because it's so chaotic over there, that made national news.
The park is in much better situation than it was. We've had a dramatic drop in violent crime. And so what problem were they here to solve? We didn't ask for them to come. Chief McDonald didn't say, hey, we need some help. Nobody asked for their help. So what was the point?
No, you are perfectly happy to allow that park to be chaotic and violent. And, by the way, if they're in there enforcing federal law for things like, immigration, you have no say over that, Karen.
Other federal laws as well, like, gang laws and drug trafficking and the sale of stolen goods through interstate commerce. There's a lot of reasons for federal law enforcement to want to be in MacArthur Park on a daily basis.
Well, how many warrants do you think exist for people living in that park?
Lots.
We were supposed to be talking about the 6-month anniversary of the Palisades fire. We were supposed to be...
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, she can't talk about that, so she can position herself to be a foil for Donald Trump.
She thinks that she looks good on this issue. It gives her a lot of national spotlight, and maybe the locals who are aligned with her will forget her performance about the fires. So it's very telling that she literally ditched a press conference with Gavin Newsom and Catherine Barger and all the other electeds to talk about the progress of the most devastating event that Los Angeles has ever seen, that she was instrumental in, to do this.
Well, it's probably going to work out for her, too. And this is something that you constantly have to remind yourself. Even though the world has gotten smaller per se because of technology, because of your iPhones, because of the internet, you also live in your own bubble. And you look at the map as to who voted for Karen Bass and who voted against her. And she's basically talking to a coalition of people who don't go anywhere near that park. If you're a wealthy person on the west side of Los Angeles, the thought of going to a park like MacArthur Park is something that never crosses your mind. It might as well be in Egypt. And so if she goes on TV and says, well, this is a park that's just in a different part of town from you, but it's like the park from Mary Poppins, they'll believe her. People who live here who know better or who should know better buy into the idea that park was a tranquil, peaceful place where people are doing outdoor yoga classes and it's safe. And this is where you go to spend a good weather Saturday afternoon. And whether or not they're so ignorant that they can't put two and two together and understand that that park is a war zone, or they believe her because they want to believe her, I don't know. But she repeats that over and over and over again. People on the news repeat that. People who live out of state. I was talking on the phone to a friend who works at CNN, who lives in New York, who believes that that park was basically like a park in any town USA. They buy into it. So if you have the media that's basically putting the company line out there, I would say not only a handful of people are going to buy into it, I bet you a majority will buy into it. I bet you if you took a poll in the city of Los Angeles and you asked the question, is MacArthur Park a safe place? The answer would be yes. If you ask the question, are there softball games that go on regularly at MacArthur Park? Oh, yes. Do families take their kids for picnics? Oh, yes. Lots of birthday parties there. Totally safe. Oh, yes. Gangs? No. Homeless? No. People believe it. It's crazy, but they do.
We were supposed to be talking about the 6-month anniversary of the Palisades fire. We were supposed to be interviewing at an event that you weren't able to go to because of all of this.
This is correct.
Since you didn't get to give the presentation, what was the top line presentation you were trying to give?
Well,
She doesn't care. She's moved on.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to yesterday's episode or maybe one from last week, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You could do what Mr. George Gascon likes to do to himself in the middle of the night.
Do a Google on YouTube.
You do you, dude. Or get one of our apps, the KABC app or the KSFO app, and you can listen to, for instance, yesterday's show, which included a crime blotter on Vallejo.
It's just a constant boom, boom, boom.
And now we're on the radio in Fresno.
Every Saturday from 2 to 3, listen to the Fix California Hour with John Phillips and Randy Wang on KMJ in Fresno, serving the Central Valley some Fix California goodness. It's on 2 to 3 every single Saturday on 580 on the AM dial in the Central Valley, 105.9 FM, or stream it live at kmjnow.com.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes X and Los Lobos at the Pacific Amphitheater at the OC Fair on August 3rd, part of the Toyota Summer Concert Series. Tickets on sale now at packamp.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. All concert tickets include admission to the OC Fair. Tickets furnished by the Pacific Amphitheater. Good luck dialing.
Right now, we're going through the sound of L.A. Mayor Karen Bass's sit-down with Fox 11's Elex Michaelson.
She thought she could make the whole story about the raids at MacArthur Park, but no, she's finally going to have to answer some questions about her handling of the fires.
Well, let me just say, too, that later in the week we are going to do a report card so we can say specifically, but...
Is the report card have an F-?
Well, then she can relate to many at LAUSD.
You know, for those people that are still out of their homes, it doesn't matter.
Which is all of them.
Yeah, whose home has been rebuilt by now?
Well, the people that homes didn't burn down, they can't go back in either because the Fair Plan and or State Farm will not pay to fix their smoke damage.
So everyone's having a grand old time there, Karen.
You know, for those people that are still out of their homes, it doesn't matter that I say that things have been going at lightning speed because they're still out of their homes. But having said that, and I think the governor documented it well, I was able to see a few minutes.
While you were grandstanding?
She never passes up an opportunity to be on TV.
Of the coverage in terms of the first phase and phase 1 and phase 2. The EPA, FEMA, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers have just done exceptional work. And, you know, on our end with our one-stop rebuilding center that we're constantly improving as we get feedback from people and find out their problems.
There's only been 100 permits in the Palisades.
Only Karen Bass could look at that and declare victory.
We resolve the problems, and so people are moving through very quickly. We have individuals with over 200 plans that have been approved. People are already beginning to build, and it's going to be...
Well, you keep going to the house of that one guy that's trying to build, but now he's stopping building because State Farm won't pay out his claim.
Oh, they're going to stop putting him on TV.
To build, and it's going to be thousands of people hopefully coming forward, but individual families have to make the decision as to when they rebuild and when they submit their plans. That's an individual decision.
But do you think the speed of permitting needs to pick up?
Well, anything that we can do to move faster and faster, we want to do that.
It's good to know that she's 100% focused on this issue, even though she's completely ignored it for a whole month.
Yeah, who in the Pacific Palisades is believing her?
So
if your home burned down, do you hear this and do you think, well, I'm confident the city is really going to move heaven and earth to get me back in my home?
So I think we have been going very fast, but again, we are always trying to identify weaknesses so that we can address them. And I will tell you that as I've gone out and talked to people from the Palisades, I hear about problems now and then. And when we hear about them, we address them.
Not that we fix them, we address them.
I hear about problems now and then. Do you think she ever meets with them and doesn't get yelled at?
Hey, she wanted this job. That's what you get. You want to be the mayor of a big city, you're going to get yelled at every single day. Sometimes it's not your fault. This time it is.
I wonder if she wishes that she would have just stayed in Congress.
Every day.
That's what I'm thinking, too.
And when we talked about this a few months ago, you said you were investigating what happened and potentially holding people accountable for that.
In terms of the fires.
Yeah, what does that look like? Where?
She was hoping everyone had forgotten about that.
In terms of the fires, you notice she clarified because she didn't want him to ask in terms of where the hell were you when the fire started?
No, she doesn't want anyone to remember that she was at a cocktail party in Ghana when the fires broke out.
It's too bad she wasn't at the French Laundry.
We're waiting for the after action report, which I believe is going to become available very, very soon. Then there's the other report that the governor is doing, which will take much longer. So we will hear. But obviously, one individual has already been held accountable.
Yeah, he said.
You're the fire chief who you fired because she spoke out against you cutting the budget.
I love the fact that the one person involved in this process who told the truth ended up getting fired.
Yeah, he says that report's coming next month, by the way. The governor just said that to me.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
So sort of bottom line, there's a lot of chaos happening right now. What's your main message to people?
Well, let me just say, there are not chaos on our streets, okay?
Have you been to L.A.?
Wow, how passive-aggressive was she there?
What was the story we had yesterday of the woman in Silver Lake that was walking to the post office and got punched in the face 4 times by one of Karen Bass's homeless people?
I'll tell you, if she's going to say that the city's under control and MacArthur Park is her city on the hill, I don't even know what to say to that.
Right now, what's your main message to people?
Well, let me just say, there are not chaos on our streets, okay? Because what happened today is over. But, again, I think we have to stick together as Angelenos, and we need to support those individuals that now are...
I have a theory. I don't know if you go with me on this. Most people that are born and raised in Los Angeles don't use the term Angelino and think it's super phony.
Well, I know people who aren't from here call it Cali. No one in the state of California calls it Cali.
But, again, I think we have to stick together as Angelenos, and we need to support those individuals that now are afraid to come out of their homes. They don't want to go to work. They don't want to go to school. We need to do what we can to...
Those poor gang members in MacArthur Park have no one to terrorize.
Oh, just think about all the people who wanted to do meth yesterday and they couldn't do it.
We need to do what we can to support them. And by the way, there's a number of different groups that are doing that.
Oh, you mean all of the groups that we're paying with tax dollars, like Churla, that then are doxing the ICE agents to the point where they tell you, hey, here's the hotel where the agents are staying at. Go harass them.
Did you see, by the way, at the press conference, some guy was standing behind her with a Churla merchandise on?
Of course.
And I think that we're fortunate to have a very sophisticated...
We cut police hiring to balance the budget, but we're making sure that we fully fund all of these nonprofits.
No, what she is she is a more dangerous version of the guy in New York City, because she is a left-wing radical. She is someone who was socialized into politics by Fidel Castro, but she understands that you can't sell that kind of revolutionary message to the masses. Even the people on the West Side won't buy that. So you have to make it seem warm and fuzzy, and that's what she is able to do. However, at her core, that's still who she is. She's just as radical as the guy in New York City. She just looks like a businesswoman. She just looks like someone who is prim and proper. But the ideas that are bouncing around in her head are just as radical as the ones that are bouncing around the head of that nut in New York.
And I think that we're fortunate to have a very sophisticated, established immigrant rights system in our city.
Mayor Bass, thank you for the time on such a busy day.
Welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Thank you very much.
What I think was lost in...
Oh, yeah, Marla's back.
Oh, congratulations, Marla.
She had a baby.
What I think was lost in all of this, in the reporting, and you did bring it up, was this idea of the actual target of the raid.
Right.
And they were reportedly going after MS-13 gang members.
And there's been a lot of problems in MacArthur Park for many years that have been criticized on a lot of different levels. But clearly it didn't seem like any of that was addressed today. You just had a lot of people finger pointing. And it's interesting because, you know, Mayor Bass did work closely with the Trump administration on the fires. And so you see these two examples that are very different. On one where they were in constant contact, and now on the immigration stuff where it does not seem like there's hardly any communication at all, and you see what happens.
Yeah, when she was here in studio not long ago with you one-on-one, you asked her about the communication with the Trump administration. She said that she had reached out and not necessarily heard back. So it sounds like it's still...
They sent her to voicemail.
Wouldn't you?
Back, so it sounds like it's still radio silence between the two.
Not a lot of communication.
Yeah, okay. All right.
There you go.
All right. Now, speaking of the fires, we know that the mayor said they're getting close to completing their report on just exactly what happened, including answering the question, how did the fires start? What caused the fire to rage? So frequently we do stories in the California Crime Blotter about jewelry stores being robbed, where they cut holes in the roof and they get into the safes and they steal millions of dollars worth of merchandise. Many of these jewelry shops don't have insurance, and the criminals are never caught. Well, Randy, it looks like in at least one case they were able to catch the criminals.
8 suspects were observed at the scene. This was at a burglary at May 27th at Bedrusian Jewelry in Glendale. 7 were successfully apprehended with the assistance of local agencies, including the Laverne Police Department, the Claremont Police Department, Glendora Police Department, and deputies from the LA County Sheriff's Department and the San Dimas Station. Police said all the apprehended suspects are foreign nationals believed to be involved in similar crimes in their own countries and the United States.
And what's so funny about this is if the Trump administration tried to deport these people, you know Karen Bass would go nuts. Our police have it under control. Don't worry about it. Uh-huh. All right. Now, we just played for you sound of what the mayor had to say about the fires. She says the city's doing everything they can to make sure that people get back into their homes as quickly as possible. But one of the things that we still don't know is just exactly how the fire started. If you can't figure that out, how the hell do you think you're going to get these people back in their homes?
We have an update on that with NBC4's investigative reporter Eric Leonard.
And we begin at 6 tonight by marking 6 months since LA County's wildfire disaster.
By the way, it's been almost 3 years since the 10 freeway melted. We still don't know who did that.
Nope, but we're working on it.
Good evening once again, everyone. I'm Colleen Williams.
And I'm Michael Brownlee. At this time 6 months ago, the Palisades fire had already been burning for nearly 8 hours. The Eaton fire wouldn't start for another 20 minutes or so at 6:18 on the evening of January 7th.
Tonight, we start with the Palisades.
That one we know. We're almost certain it's SoCal Edison.
But the Palisades, not quite sure yet.
Tonight, we start with the Palisades fire. NBC4 Investigates has some exclusive new information about the investigation into the cause of that fire in the Palisades.
The ATF and other agencies have been looking at a number of theories for months now. Our investigative reporter Eric Leonard says that's now narrowed and focused on one area. He joins us live in the newsroom now with an update. Eric?
Hi, Michael and Colleen. Well, this is the question everyone's been asking. How did it start? And several of our law enforcement sources tell us they believe they're very close to confirming the cause of the January 7th fire. And they say there's still a possibility someone could face criminal charges. Our contacts tell us a lot of investigation still needs to be done, and it's too soon to share too much more information publicly. Many theories have been explored in the last 6 months on the possible causes. One by one, almost all have been ruled out, including the accidental ignition by utility lines.
Oh, that's interesting. So they've already ruled out that it's not an LADWP or SoCal Edison problem for this fire.
Okay. So if Southern California Edison is off the hook for the Pacific Palisades fire, we know that in the city of Los Angeles, 50% of the fires are started by homeless encampments. So that means if they haven't been ruled out either, the odds that this fire was started by a homeless encampment just increased.
If that's the case, and if that's what comes out, is that the end of Karen Bass?
No. Because I think she'll just say they were trying to keep warm, and the greedy people have caused the cost of housing in California to go through the roof, so it's their fault.
Well, unfortunately, there is one other theory that's starting to really hold water.
Now, several law enforcement officials familiar with the case but not authorized to speak publicly say much of the inquiry now centers on that much smaller brush fire that was extinguished 1 week before the Palisades fire, a fire that neighbors reported had been ignited by illegal fireworks set off on New Year's night.
Oh, yeah.
The fireworks people.
You know, while we've been on the air, there's been a fire that started yesterday in Laguna Beach in Orange County. And just minutes ago, they arrested a 13-year-old boy who started that fire by launching illegal fireworks.
Can you imagine being that kid's parents?
Now, you might remember in late April, the ATF conducted a series of burn tests in the Palisades Highlands, very close to where both fires started. The January 7th Palisades fire started during daylight hours, but these tests were done between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. That's the time frame when the January 1st fire started. The sources told us the test fires were set in order to gauge the sensitivity of some remote detection equipment that would help narrow the timeline for when that New Year's Eve fire ignited. So all of this suggests that investigators have found some definitive connection between those two fires, but so far the ATF has simply said
it is so emblematic of California if this thing started because of illegal fireworks.
Well, if it started because of illegal fireworks and they figured out who did it, can you imagine what the charges must be?
But so far the ATF has...
What did they charge that couple that blew up the Inland Empire with the gender reveal party?
They got charged with something. I'm not sure exactly what they were charged with or how long they had to spend in prison.
But so far, the ATF has simply said the investigation is ongoing. It's also declined to answer our specific questions, and we're told it may be another month or two before we get an official statement on what all of those arson investigators have found. Back to you guys.
Hey, Eric, before we let you go, what have you learned about the cause of the Eaton fire? There seemed to be quite a bit of evidence out in public that the electrical lines in the foothills were the source of not only the sparks, but the flames.
Right. So certainly a very different kind of mystery out in Altadena, where authorities said there's little doubt the origin of that fire was directly below some electrical lines and towers in Eaton Canyon.
And in fact, SoCal Edison basically admitted it in a paperwork they had to file.
Well, and there are videos that show the ignition point, or what is believed to be the ignition point.
And we know that this is not the first time, nor will be it the last time, that SoCal Edison and their terrible equipment starts a major fire. They only very recently were finally held accountable for the Woolsey fire. And by held accountable, I mean they had to pay a fine, but they can raise rates to make up that payment.
The question there that fire investigators have been looking at, along with state regulators and attorneys representing fire victims, has been trying to answer exactly which electrical line. There are several that run through Eaton Canyon, including some dead lines that investigators suspect could have been momentarily re-energized in the extreme winds that night and sparked. So far, no official conclusions there either. Authorities tell us it remains under investigation as well.
So there you go. That's the latest on the starts of the devastating Palisades and Eaton fires.
So according to Eric Leonard, they suspect it may be fireworks, but they're not sure enough to confirm that quite yet.